It is said that fortune favors the bold, but why would someone believe that? Is it courage which fortune favors? No, it is the will to act when the moment announces itself, through the fog of abstraction and into perception. Fortune, she arrives in many forms, but many do not act, not merely due to cowardice, but due to impropriety, unreadiness, and unwillingness. Fortune is neither a shield nor a sword, but a moment of time. Boldness births forth from this as the will to act on the moment and seize the advantage so generously lent to such an actor. For time it passes us by like a raging torrent, with us sheltered by the shore, unmoving, frozen stiff in fear of the destructive currents. That is life. The torrent never ceases, but waxes and wanes like the moon, presenting moments of both superior brightness and clarity, and utter darkness and obscurity. Choosing not to act is easy, and gives the impression of a secure position. But we all know that floods happen, and wash entire peoples to their doom. So to not act in any manner is to invite death to your door, and to have its way with you. So can inaction be said to be security? No, it cannot be. There is never any security other than that which is provided through one's own acts of will and self-ownership, and the continual possession of one's own liberty. But what instruction can we gain in order to know when to act and how to act? No man, as currently is, was birthed into a vacuum. For if he were, he would have never required action, for he would have been destroyed. All men are born into a culture, a society, a family. Each is endowed with an essential narrative, and if he is not, then he is doomed to a path of destruction. He who struggles forth without a narrative does so to the effect of his own ruin. And although one might attest that he went to ruin, it cannot be said that he ever lived, and so, therefore, never died. He becomes undone by his own lack of direction, like a naive explorer of parts unknown, doomed to the labyrinth of the world. Untold fathoms of enormous bounty and wealth could not rescue him from his fate, save for an endowment of a narrative compass. Wealth is gained and spent like raindrops in your palms, outstretched in empty hopes of a salvationary gulp of satiation. But the chalice can never be filled, because the chalice isn't there. Inasmuch as one without a narrative map survives, he sips these desperate drips in the midst of rainstorms and hurricanes alike, and barely gets on with being. Each day presents a new struggle for survival, wherein a man cannot hope to grasp even tertiary thoughts. He is at the mercy of the storm of being, a man thrown overboard by his culture, who failed to teach him how to sail, or perhaps he refused to learn, as some men are wont to do. Fortune favors the bold, but not those who are adrift. How do you know if you are adrift or secure in your narrative mapping of the world? How many rocks can your hopes and dreams upon be dashed before you yearn for the painless sleep of the cold depths below? How long must you endure the Leviathan's lament for his defeat by the Almighty? The ultimate externalization of the protagonist slew it with prejudice and cast it into the depths in disgrace, for it to rise again in opposition in a never-ending battle of will against submission. But what of that protagonist you project? Are you not a protagonist in your own narrative? One answer is a resounding yes, whilst the alternative is death. As individuals, one must know that they possess the potential to live, and therefore exist as a protagonist in their own narrative reality. Inasmuch as they choose to live, they exist as this protagonist. However, inasmuch as they choose not to live, they exist as antagonists themselves, and aim the self towards death. This is a fundamental and therefore inescapable truth. Many deny this about themselves, yet it remains just as true regardless. We instead blame outside forces for our conditions, without reference to what condition our own condition is in. We are not passive beings in this life. We choose to live, or we don't. Our actions determine which is true. This element of being, our own self-antagonism, is fully and utterly under the spell of our own will. Any other concept is to reduce our responsibility for our condition, and in doing so, we are reducing our being itself in reference to itself. To externalize our antagonism is to choose death over living, to go forth in cowardice towards the darkness, and be completely enveloped therein, delivered as an act of will into the welcoming embrace of the Leviathan's lament. The path to redemption lay not within a pilgrimage to some holy site, nor does it lay within a magical spell or ritual, but in the acknowledgment of will, and the seeking of the will to live. We cannot allow ourselves to be tempted by the will to death, to the suicide of spirit. We cannot revive the Leviathan into a creative union in order for it to do our bidding, for its purpose is only to destroy. It is the element of unbeing, and no hope exists of its surfacing via the collective unwill of spiritual sleepwalkers. The sword cannot be wielded by the armless dead, but the living may attempt to raise it from its lair, even though such an act would be to commit to unbeing. But a Pandora's box of woes will be unto those who wield such a weapon. Hope alone will be all that remains for salvation under such a circumstance, for all is not lost if hope remains. But of this hope one must still embrace further this will to live. It is within the darkest times and moments of great obscurity, where our only hope, our only refuge, is to say the will to live on, the active choice to persist, to boldly hold the line against the cold embrace of oblivion untold. Many foresee the Leviathan coming, and therein surrender to its magnanimity, for they cannot withstand its force within their own hearts. But this is false. The will is great, immense. It is greater than the Leviathan. Will itself, the size of a mustard seed, it is said, can move mountains of mountains. The Leviathan stands no chance against a single man and the will to persist, to live, to oppose the Leviathan in the immediate embrace of oblivion. Oblivion may come for us all one day, but let that not be today. One must say to its face, with a heroic heart, blessed with will, never mind the measure of the beast, never mind the measure of the man, be it only for his will to decide his fate. He will devour the Leviathan, and lay him